In college, there was a guy on our floor named Steve who was studying evolutionary psych and was constantly conducting different psychological tricks and experiments on us. They were all pretty cool, challenged us to think outside the boundaries of our minds. One night, he came back with a mirror game. It was similar to other dares and challenges involving mirrors like Bloody Mary or Candyman. Only in this case, the villain that showed up in the reflection was you. The game involved perception, namely, your perception of yourself. From there, it expanded outwardly, encompassing other people and places and their relation to you. All you needed was yourself, a mirror, and complete concentration. I had a mirror, but it was a long week, and all I wanted to do was sleep, so I stayed in. A floor-wide email was sent out inviting everyone to try it in their rooms. The game was called the Jamais Challenge. Jamais is a French phrase and translates to being the literal opposite of déjà vu, whereas the latter, déjà vu, translates to already seen. Jamais vu translates to never seen. In a psychological sense, it relates to the phenomenon of experiencing a situation that should be familiar, but is instead foreign and unrecognizable. Seeing things or people that you should know, but for some reason, they appear as strangers or unknowns. Everyone has experienced some form of this in their life. An easy example would be if you've ever been looking for something in your home. After minutes of searching, you finally locate it in a place you know you checked multiple times, but for some reason, it blended into the surroundings, and its familiarity made it invisible. The Jamais challenge was grounded in this idea. The challenge played with our own perception of who we are and had very simple directions. You had to be alone in front of a mirror, and you had to keep it close to your face. Then you had to stare into your own eyes and say your name repeatedly. The name repetition and eye contact with your reflection allowed you to accelerate the familiarity you had with your name and face. The objective was to say your name so many times, the word no longer made sense to you, while at the same time concentrating on your face so diligently you no longer recognized it. I wouldn't recommend it, but if you're brave, you can try it. You'll be surprised with how quickly your name means nothing, and your face becomes a stranger's. How the sounds and syllables turn alien, and your eyes, nose, and lips morph into an outsider's. The challenge, if done correctly, made you forget who you were. So in a sense, it shaved you down to your most basic human instincts. It reminded me of a story I once heard from a drama teacher. She had a student who was quiet and reserved and had a hard time breaking out of her shell. The teacher convinced her to do a heavy scene that involved a loud scream at the end. The student played the part well, but couldn't manage the scream in the finale. The teacher pushed the student and kept at her, trying to pull out something deeper. Then she did. The student began to scream, a horrific, guttural shriek, and she wouldn't stop. She just kept going. The teacher tried to calm her down. The other students tried as well, but it was like a switch had been flicked deep inside the student. The screams were terrifying. They sounded far down the evolutionary rabbit hole. The student found something, somewhere inside of her that was so unsettling, it made several other students throw up. An ambulance eventually arrived and the student was taken away. Even as she was driven off, you could hear her screaming. The teacher never saw or heard of the girl again. which was annoying because I wanted to know more. I always pictured the student in some asylum, probably sedated, her vocal cords numbed down, but still trying to scream. The switch inside of her somehow still stuck in the on position. My roommate Ally told me she was joining the challenge and was doing it next door. I had zero interest in that and fell asleep on the couch. A storm hit that night. I woke up just before midnight from knocks at the door between claps of thunder. The knocks were uneven and strange, and the door was unlocked. I opened it to find Ally. She was frazzled and nervously trembling as she looked in at me. I warmly reached out to wave her in, but she pulled back. Ally looked at me like I was someone she didn't recognize, or know, or trust. She looked back down the hall, which I realized had smoke gathering in the air. I peeked out and saw the smoke coming from a room down the hall. I heard movements and struggling sounds coming from the rooms. Everything felt off. I reached forward again, warmly, and this time Ally was receptive. I put my arm around her and guided her in. She became like a baby under my arm, infant-like, as if needing protection. I tried to talk to Ally, but she wasn't speaking right. Her words were coming out in long, strangely connected mumbles. They sounded backwards and upside down, like a stroke having a stroke. I brought Ally to the bathroom and closed the door to give her privacy. She behaved like she didn't want me to leave her, but was unable to speak the words. It was all so bizarre. I felt like I was still sleeping. I panicked, wondering if I should call the RA or go straight to calling an ambulance. Then I heard a scream. It was from somewhere on this floor, further down the hall near the rec room. Then one of the fire alarms went off. And then all of them. But just as soon as they did, I heard 3 loud, individual cracks, and the ringing shorted out. I tried calling Steve. I could hear his cell phone ringing somewhere in the hallway. It continued ringing all the way into voicemail. No one answered. I tried again, but nothing. It kept ringing until it stopped. I waited a few minutes until the hallway had been quiet long enough. Then I grabbed a pen-sized can of pepper spray and quietly opened the door and peeked out. It reeked of burned toast. The hall was filled with smoke now, and I could barely see the next door. I crept along the wall, passing the closed doors of other students' rooms. Behind some of the doors, there were sounds, unintelligible mumbles and cries. My plan was to get to Marie's room. She was our RA, and her room was at the far end of the hallway near the kitchen area. I continued along the hall and passed through the rec room. The TV was on, and an old episode of Jeopardy was playing. Luke, one of the guys on our floor, was sitting in front of the TV, staring mindlessly and mumbling the same way as Ally. He made me uneasy, and he wasn't acting like the normal guy I would watch shotgunning beers in bathroom stalls. I backed up, deciding to go back to my room and try calling Marie instead. I turned back to the hallway and the cloud of smoke. There was a crying sound coming from deep within it. Between the sobs, there were jumbles and backwards words. That same stroke-like cadence. It was a sad, disturbed crying that made me want to run back to my room and bolt the door. The silhouette got closer and turned into Laura, another student. Laura's room was down the hall, near the staircase. She was stumbling towards me, her hands cupped out in front of her. She was trying to speak, but crying through it. Laura tripped, falling forwards, her hands out, and pleading for some kind of sustenance. I didn't know what to do, so I backed up. And just as I did, a new shadow appeared. It was Steve, and he had lost his mind. Steve was swinging one of his baseball bats, which was covered in blood. He, himself, was also covered in blood, and his clothes were ripped and shredded. His eyes were wild, and he was screaming violent jumbles of words. Steve didn't see me, but he saw Laura. He grunted at her and swung the bat viciously. The bat connected with the side of Laura's head, sending her sprawling into a room. Steve followed her in, swinging the bat like he was playing whack-a-mole. Laura's screams and cries drowned out and were replaced by the slapping thud of Steve's bat against flesh and bone. I rushed across the doorway and tried to make it down the hall, but Steve heard me and chased me down. Steve got a hold of me 2 doors down from my own. He had one arm around me and was trying to pull me to the ground. I got a hand free and pulled out my pepper spray. I struggled and fought and managed to press it right into one of his eyes while I was shooting it. Steve screamed and let go of me. I shoved him back and ran through the smoke. I got inside my room and locked the door. He never came to the room, but I heard him crying and hitting the walls as he patrolled the hall. I got a knife from my mini kitchen and went to check on Ally. I found her huddled up in the far end of the bathtub. She reached out to me like a child would its mother. I spent the next hour holding her and rocking her to sleep. Campus and state police arrived and cleared all the rooms. They found us in the bathtub. Ally was still spouting gibberish, but I could speak and told them what I knew. As we were escorted out of our room and down the hall, I saw numerous body bags in rooms and the kitchen. I knew Laura had died, but it didn't hit me until then how much larger this all was. In the end, it turned out that Steve had killed 7 students and the RA Marie. Ally eventually recovered, regaining her memory of self and others. Steve went into an asylum. He's very lucid and normal now as well, but he has a strange animal quality to his eyes. Like everything he looks at is prey. Most people would be terrified if they looked in the mirror and what they saw back wasn't their face, but their character. And it's made me wonder what mine would have looked like if I'd done the Jamais challenge. If I would have been like Steve and fallen into a deep evolutionary well that supercharged my limbic system. If the lizard tail in my amygdala would have brought me back to infancy or turned me into something dangerous. Please like and subscribe to our channel. We put a lot of effort into creating our content. It started out like any Thursday night. Mason, Tyler, Ely, and Alex were hanging out in Mason's dorm room, a few beers in, scrolling through weird apps on the internet. That's when Mason found something called Spirit Board. It looked like one of those digital Ouija boards, you know, the kind where you ask questions and ghosts supposedly move the pointer around to answer you. There was only one review, and it just said, "Do not install. This is not a game app." "We gotta try this," Mason had said, already hitting the download button. Tyler, he was reluctant, always was. He wouldn't even watch Paranormal Activity without sleeping with the lights on for a week. But after some teasing and another beer, Eli and Alex convinced him to join in while Mason launched the app. They dimmed the lights, sat in a circle, and placed the phone in the center of the floor. At first, it was just laughs. Mason asking dumb questions like, "Will any of us get laid this semester?" The app gave back random nonsense. They figured it was just programmed junk. But then, Mason asked, "Are there any spirits present?" That's when things got weird. The pointer moved, deliberately, and spelled out, "I am here." They thought it was just a gimmick until it started answering personal questions. What was the name of Alex's first dog? Ranger. What street did Eli grow up on? Hickory Lane. Each answer, spot on. They were buzzed, nervous, but they kept going. "Who are you?" Mason asked. The app replied, "Vengeful." Tyler wanted out, but the others pushed on. "What do you want?" Eli asked. Slowly, the response came, "Your souls." They laughed nervously, tried to play it cool. Then Alex, joking, asked, "So are you going to kill us now or what?" The pointer slid, letter by letter, one by one. Suddenly, the lights blew out. When they flickered back on, Mason slammed the app shut. They laughed it off, told themselves it was just good timing. Mason deleted the app, but deep down they were all uneasy. 3 days later, Tyler was found dead, lying motionless in his bed, eyes wide open, frozen in pure terror. His phone was still clutched in his hand. The screen? Glowing. Spirit board. Pointer resting on the word, "Goodbye." But here's the thing. Tyler had never downloaded the app. It installed itself. No one could explain how a healthy college kid just died. Well, no one except the 3 people who knew what they had done. Mason tried explaining it to the campus cop. That cramped office smelled like old coffee and worn-out excuses. He swore they were just messing with a dumb app, that Tyler was always scared of that stuff. But what he didn't say was that Tyler had texted them the night before. He'd said, "The app's on my phone. I didn't install it. I can't delete it." Then the officer's phone buzzed. He took the call. When he returned, his face was unreadable. Then he said, "Medical examiner says it was heart failure. You're free to go." Back in his room, Mason was shaking. Everyone thought he had something to do with Tyler's death. He messaged Eli and Alex, told them the cops said it was natural causes. Alex replied, "That's BS. Tyler was healthy." Then Mason admitted something. Tyler had said the app installed itself. Just as Mason was typing his next message, a notification popped up. Spirit Board would like to update. He hadn't touched the app in days. The update began automatically. He panicked, tried to cancel it, tried deleting, forced stopping, even turning the phone off. Nothing worked. The screen went black, then flickered back. Spirit Board. The pointer moved. "Hello, Mason." He texted his friends. "Guys, something's really wrong." The pointer moved again. "Thank you for connecting. Now I am with you until you become one with me." Mason sent one last text. "I think something's really wrong here." Then, nothing. About an hour later, Eli and Alex were banging on Mason's door. No answer. People started complaining about the noise. Someone got the RA. When they finally got the door open, Mason was on the floor. His phone across the room, cracked screen still glowing, Spirit Board app open. 2 students, dead, no explanation. Only one thing connected them. An app that doesn't exist on the App Store or Google Play. The tech team traced the app and found something worse. 5 years ago, another case. A student, Chris Walsh, dead. Same circumstances, same app. Eli and Alex were too afraid to be alone. Started sleeping in the same room, taking turns staying awake. But when Alex had to leave for a funeral, Eli was left alone. That night, he woke up to a blue glow. His phone, screen lit. Installing Spirit Board, he freaked. Through the phone. Cracked the screen, but it kept glowing. Pointer moved. Hello, Eli. Books shook, flew. Desk drawers slammed. He could barely breathe, like something was on his chest. He crawled to the door, opened it, and standing there, Tyler. Pale, lifeless, staring. Eli slammed the door shut. Something banged on it hard. He backed up and was shoved by nothing. Thrown into his desk, fan blazed hand. Blood sprayed, he screamed. In the hospital, Alex sat by Eli's bed. Eli whispered, "I saw Tyler." Then his eyes went wide. Looking at Alex's pocket, Alex's phone buzzed. He looked down. Spirit Board would like to install. He dropped the phone and ran, begging the cops for help. Officer Rivera said he was done with this ghost story crap. 2 kids died of natural causes. Alex just stood there, hopeless. Next morning, a nurse found Alex in the hospital bathroom, dead. Phone in hand, screen glowing, Spirit Board, message on the screen, together forever. Back in college, I was delivering pizzas to pay the bills. The tips were decent most nights, and it beat working in a library. One night, I get an order way out in the suburbs. Big, expensive-looking place. I'm already thinking, sweet, rich folks usually tip well. I knock on the door with a large pepperoni, and this totally normal-looking middle-aged guy answers. Nothing strange about him at first. He calls over his shoulder, "Honey, the pizza's here." But here's the weird part. The place was empty. Empty, empty. Bare floors, bare walls, no furniture, no pictures. Just this echoing hollow space where a living room should be. And dead silent. No Honey answering back. The guy smiles and says, "Let me just grab my wallet. Come in, it's cold out there." Now, my instincts are screaming absolutely not, but I'm 19, broke, and trying not to seem rude. So I step inside. He points to a spot near the front door and says, "Just stand right there. Don't move. I'll be right back." Then, click, he locks the door. He starts walking toward a hallway, but every few steps, he turns around to check on me, like he's making sure I'm still in that exact spot. I stand there for what feels like forever, 10 minutes maybe. Alone in that empty, echoing house. My skin is crawling. Finally, I decide I've had enough. I start toward the hallway to find him. There's a door cracked open. Inside, I hear him talking. About me. Yeah, about 5'10", skinny build, brown hair. Standing right where I told him. Nah, he looks weak. This'll be easy. I bolted. Didn't think, didn't breathe. I ran to the front door, yanked it open, jumped a fence, and sprinted to my car. Left the pizza, the money, everything. I quit that night. Called my manager, told him I was done. Never delivered another pizza again. And to this day, I still wonder what would have happened if I'd stayed in that spot. Please like and subscribe to our channel. We put a lot of effort into creating our content.